All right, so week 2 of the LCS is done and dusted. A lot of takeaways for some of the teams individually, some things that they did great, a lot of things that some of the top end teams did wrong. I'm going to skip past that for now. That'll be another video. What I want to talk about is the standings and how condensed and how close the standings are between the top and the bottom. And if you've got eyeballs, you see that it's only a couple of wins that separates the top teams from the bottom. Dignitas and Immortals are 1-4. Evil Geniuses are 4-1. That's essentially 3 games that separates them from the top of the standings. And that's a very interesting place to be, especially when you take into consideration that there are no undefeated teams this early on into the split. Normally what happens, for those who are new or for those that maybe don't remember, haven't been paying attention, normally there's an undefeated team or two that make it halfway through the split, maybe 3/4 of the way before something, really stops them in their tracks. Normally, one team is left standing undefeated, 3/4 of the way at most. But we haven't even made it that far, and all the teams have both won and lost at least one game. Which makes the standings, considerations very interesting when you think about some of the strength of schedules that a bunch of these teams are going to have going in. To start from the bottom, when you look at Immortals and Dignitas, it's not that far away from the top. It's a couple of weekends, 2 good weekends. You get a couple of wins. Maybe go 1-1 on the weekend, 2-0. You do that a couple times, you're right in contention with the middle teams, especially some of the top end teams start throwing games. Maybe where others don't expect them to. And I think this is really interesting for the summer playoffs implications because, as everybody knows, the summer playoff window is a lot smaller than the spring window. And that means that there's less teams that get to qualify for the playoffs, less teams that get to qualify for Worlds. And ultimately, that makes any potential tiebreakers, any closeness in the standings, any bad weekends hurt that much more, right? So if you go 0-2 on a weekend, it's going to hurt a lot more when you consider that your teams are going to be a lot more competitive as the split starts to come to an end. So, you drop 2 games, like, okay, you start searching your schedule. Where can we, pick up a win or two? And, you know that another team behind you only needs one more to either surpass you, or tie up with you. So, some interesting standings implications as the split continues to roll on. We start to complete the first round robin and launch into the second one. I think the most interesting thing is that we've seen some inconsistency from the top teams, and yes, that includes Evil Geniuses. Obviously, they get a little bit of slack because they are still a championship caliber team that is obviously going to have a little bit of fatigue coming from MSI. They are still sitting at 4-1, so they're doing pretty good. They've got a great start to their split. Obviously, they would have liked to remain undefeated, but you know what? You're not going to be able to win them all when you've gone through what they've gone through. So kudos to them for getting the lead that they have, and we'll see if they can hold on to it at 4-1. Obviously, CLG Team Liquid right behind them. Very interesting to see CLG have that 3-0 weekend and then pick up another win this weekend. They drop one game, but I mean they're right up there, and thank goodness for them. The LCS doesn't count Spring Split this year because if they did, it would be very difficult for them. I think record-wise, trying to undo that, they would have to continue to have performances like they had in the first week of the summer split. Something I also want to point out too is kind of the middle of the standings right now for the LCS. There are a number of teams that have made some roster adjustments, primarily TSM, primarily Cloud9, that they are hoping are going to launch them into the top 4, at minimum maintain top 5, going into this playoffs run. And I think what's going to be interesting is if some of these roster moves don't pay off, you're going to start to see teams like FlyQuest, Golden Guardians, maybe even an Immortals, if they can get their roster running, start to make headway and maybe put themselves in contention for a playoff spot. Obviously, that will remain to be seen. Obviously, these rosters are still, I think, somewhat untested, and it's interesting that there's a large spread of the talent across the teams this split, and really this year, to be honest with you. But more so, this split I think has been the most interesting. You have a good mix of veterancy and newer talent or rookie talent across the majority of the teams. And some of these teams have continued to either build upon the start of their organization, or some of them are going through a rebuild if you're TSM or Cloud9. So it's interesting to see if some of those results will pay off. The 2 most notable teams right now that are going to be under scrutiny are going to be TSM and Cloud9. People expect them to excel. People expect them to start to make a comeback into summer. People expect them to be in contention for playoff spots, potentially Worlds. But you have to do it first, and I think there's still a lot of questions to be answered about TSM and Cloud9. Yes, getting a couple wins to start off the summer split. Especially this weekend, knocking off a couple of good teams is an important move. But one egg does not an omelet make. You got to continue cracking some more eggs and keep putting in the work. So for TSM and Cloud9, it's to keep rolling and try and pick up wins where you can, especially considering their strength of schedule and the other teams they have to play. There's a lot of wins to pick up there before they go into the second round robin. As we start to go into this next weekend. But I'm excited. I think a lot of LCS fans are excited to see how this summer split is going to go. It's closer already than it's been in a long time. Again, not having an undefeated team makes things very interesting. It makes the shakeup of how the standings will play out a lot more interesting. Makes the summer contention, much more interesting. Obviously, I think a lot of people were upset that spring didn't carry over to summer. Because it kind of felt like spring didn't matter again, and that was, I think, something that a lot of people wanted to see the LCS away from. But it can be said that it does make summer that much more exciting, and so knowing that the record that they make now is going to count for everything, I think is going to be in the back of a lot of these teams' mind. I mean, they're going to be doing everything they can to win. And I think for the most part, all of the teams believe that they have a decent shot. Even if you're Immortals or Dignitas and you're at the bottom of the standings, I think that even they feel if they get a couple good weekends, build up some momentum and stay consistent, that they might have a chance to challenge for, maybe a lower bracket spot. But it remains to be seen, whether or not the investment that they put into some of these rosters is going to pay off. And that goes for every team. And some interesting storylines with that too. I mean, the Evil Geniuses, they're your defending champions. They're going to be looking to go back to the grand finals in summer again. They're going to be looking to, not only reprove what they already proved in spring, but obviously they're going to look to expand on this success that they've had. That they've had thus far. So I think winning for them means a great deal. CLG is trying to pull their name out of the mud. They're trying to prove that they can be a top team again. They're trying to at least restore some of their legacy and then do a couple years of some pretty lean times for what is supposed to be a veteran organization. Team Liquid will be looking to undo the embarrassment of spring split. Obviously, I think that they were not particularly happy that they got knocked out in the semifinals 3-0. I think they'll be looking to avenge that loss, and I think they'll be looking to try and find their way back into a grand finals where they rightfully believe that they belong. 100 Thieves, the same thing. They've been running the same roster for 3 splits now, so that's an interesting storyline for them. Is it worth it to continue running this roster? Can you continue to invest in the longevity of a roster, or is it worth it to pick up some free agent team or free agent players and mix it up and bring some life into a team, or do you trust the veterancy that your players are building in your organization? Questions that's going to have to get answered. TSM, same thing as CLG. Some lean times, not been doing very good. Multi-million-dollar roster that blew up in their face, and now they've got to find a way to make it work, or it's going to look really, really embarrassing for Reggie and co. if TSM doesn't manage to pull it out. Same thing for Cloud9. Bringing in imports only to get your ass handed to you in playoffs. Not the way you want to go out. So a lot of really, really interesting storylines and how this could play out. And that's just the what we consider to be the top 6 teams right now. This doesn't even include if the other 4 or 5 teams, the other 4 teams, that they start creating upsets and start winning games and start building some momentum and take games off the middle of the top teams. Then it becomes a case of anything goes. So I think a lot to be excited for, a lot to watch out for come the next couple of weeks, and I think this next weekend is going to be pretty important for the majority of these teams.